Welcome to Life Point TV. I'm Pastor Del Phillips, your host for Life Point, your path to real life. We have been in an incredible study concerning the work of grace, God's work on behalf of man. I want to bring a conclusion to our present teaching, and I want to drive our attention to an Old Testament passage. We primarily have looked and focused on Paul's writing in the New Testament. I want to take us to a foundation scripture that gives us an important point of reference concerning uh, the concept of grace. Genesis, book of beginnings, chapter 6. I want you to find verse 8 so we can focus on the man Noah. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. First of all, some important background in regards to Noah. Those who are familiar with the Old Testament scripture here, we understand that this passage is where God calls Noah, preparing him for the building of the ark, the rescue mission, if you will, in respect to the coming flood. The flood was used to purge the creation of God, to purge the earth, literally to baptize it and to restart formal creation from the time of Noah forward. And so we actually can see Noah as the second father of creation, Adam being the first man created. But now with the deluge, the flood, the baptismal, if you will, of the entire creation, Noah is set to become the second father of creation. He will be the one that will spawn life or continue, his seed will continue life from that point forward. With that being said, it kind of frames and highlights this statement in verse 8 where it says, and Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. That word favor or grace that is used here is the same word that we have been tracking in this study. Noah found grace. Noah found that expression of the Hebraic where the superior uh, bends over, stoops down to give kindness to an inferior. That's how God favored Noah. He looks at Noah in the midst of all the other sin that's upon the earth, the cause for, the reason for, the symptom being dealt with concerning creation that would lead to the flood, that would lead to the purging, was because of the great sin in the earth, the great acts of disobedience, rebellion, if you will. God sees through all of that great sin. He finds one man and he bestows his grace upon him. You see, grace is something that is freely given. It is given, listen to me, it is given at the discretion of the grace giver. It's not something that can be earned. Grace is unmerited favor that comes from God. You can't earn it. You can't be, watch this, you can't be good enough to receive it. It's God's disposition to administer grace. Ooh, wow. Noah would have been consumed had it not been for God's grace. Regardless of his personal standing, God's desire to cleanse and purge the earth, it doesn't say that God notices his perfection. Watch this, watch this. It doesn't say that God notices his lack of sin in order to give him favor. It clearly says Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. It was God's grace that that selected Noah to become the second father of creation. Here's where I want you to take note for our personal application where we live right now today. In the midst of great sin, great acts of disobedience, rebellion throughout, the absence of morality, and the inability to have absolute truth in an environment that we wrestle to live in present day. God is looking for one that he can bestow his grace. You who are watching today, you need to be that one who will say, I'm willing. I'm not perfect. I'm not without sin. I'm not without blemish, but I'm willing to allow God's grace to find me, to stand in God's grace, to allow God's grace to make use of me. You and I have that privilege for God to make use of us to become that one who will give birth to God's generation here in the earth. God will look into our life and bestow his grace, his kindness, giving us what we don't have already, empowering us what we cannot do on our own, to raise us up as a new generation in the world we live in right now. I'm encouraging you to allow God to choose you like he chose Noah, to stand as one who will give new life to the world that we live in, to be the one that will build that spiritual ark of safety, that will bring those that God calls you to bring life to into that place of spiritual safety. God's favor, God's grace, raising us up to do a work that we cannot do on our own. God bless you. I encourage you to stay on the path, that path of grace that leads to new life.